Good evening and welcome to the show, Katy Thomas.
Oh, kia ora, Paul
Kia
Murray.
ora. How are you, mate? I've already
Evening,
told
Katy.
people about you and me podcasting and what we did all then and there. So you're already part of the family. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to see you again. It's been a while.
You too, mate. Yeah, really good.
Mm.
Okay. Now, the reason we're connecting is I saw an article on RNZ. Let's just be honest, that's where it's out there, about the 6 months on from the disability cuts.
Yes.
And I guess I'm a little bit embarrassed to think we should be doing more of this, Chewy. We should be realizing after the big news cycle has finished, these news items still affect people in their everyday life. And I just thought this is a really important thing to speak about and to speak to. And because you're someone who is experiencing this, I thought we'll just get you on. Do you want to tell us your story? Who are we looking at here in this picture with you? And first of all, just give us the background as to why you're involved with the disability sector and all of that.
Right. Well, that's my number one reason right there in my arms. That's Eddie. I have two boys. Eddie's my oldest, and he has ASD, autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, refractory nocturnal epilepsy, and some learning disabilities and some other musculoskeletal. So I'm not going to get into all of it because we don't actually have all night. Yeah. But he is my why, and he was my pathway. And funnily enough, he was my pathway to my own ADHD diagnosis. Not that would really surprise you, but it's been, I guess, 10 years of navigating the disability caregiver path. And so sort of even prior to the disability funding cuts, maybe about a year ago, things escalated as they do, similar to the last time we caught up, actually, disruptions in his medication, and I had to shut down my business, which was no small feat, but it was growing and I couldn't manage that, plus the overwhelming burden of care on my shoulders, and
you're right.
He's more important.
So you've now transitioned to a new government as someone who uses the sector, and as the article was talking about, 6 months on since the shock disability cuts, can you tell us how is it for you 6 months after the incumbent government made these decisions when it comes to you looking after your son, the benefits your son had, the resources he had compared to what's going on now?
It's night and day, to be honest. It's hard to know where exactly to start. I suppose we come under a couple of different categories when it comes to disability funding, but the pinch that I have felt the most is the changes to respite. So right now here on my laptop beside me, and if you hear the bell ding, I'm going to run out of the room immediately, and I suggest you mute my microphone because it is a nocturnal epileptic. So his seizures happen exclusively at night.
Okay.
Hence why I'm up. I don't sleep a lot. And although technically you can use respite for anything that gives you a break from caregiving, and I'm caregiving during the day as well, it's the stuff that I find really exhausting. The staying awake, the being screamed awake if I fall asleep. And I know that it's perpetual. We've just come out of winter, and winter is always, for any disability, I'm not just saying it's particular to epilepsy, but we all find winter incredibly challenging just because there's more germs. So all the immunocompromised whānau are struggling to manage and contain illness. And with illness, especially for something like autism, which is primarily an affect regulation disorder, it comes with behaviour. So it's not just the sickness. You also have somebody who can't express the pain and discomfort that they feel. So you're fielding that, which, depending on the child, might come with some aggression or violence, or self-harm, injurious behaviours. And for me to not be able to pay for somewhere to stay means that my only option is in-home respite. And if you can hear your son screaming through the walls, you're not getting the sleep that the respite is meant to afford you. You're also probably going to get up and do the caregiving that you're paying somebody else to do, just because it's not a job, it's a labour of love.
Can I just clarify? Can I clarify one thing, Katy? Because you can't go anywhere. Are you saying that under the previous government, respite care would be you'd go away and get a break for a night or something, and now that can't happen? Is that the actual change? The funding model has changed.
So the funding. So this is the thing. The funds might be there, but the exclusion criteria across the board, no matter which funding stream you're looking at, has changed so dramatically and so much. It's not like there was just that pause on March 18. The changes have been coming thick and fast up until last week. The other day, every time I ring up to confirm that my pre-approval for the things that I've already been assessed for Edward's needs is still valid, there'll be something new. It's like, oh no, you can't submit that it's out of date. And I'm like, what do you mean it's out of date? RDA, the Writing School for Disabled, just sent me that invoice. You can see on the email, it's not even 24 hours old, but the date on the invoice is outside this new exclusion criteria, because they bill after Edward's done all the lessons at the end of the school term. And they're like, it's not a fresh invoice. I'm like, it's a fresh invoice. They just sent it to me. I'm a solo mum. I live in Auckland. So my living costs are just the highest out of anybody everywhere. And I'm not currently working. So now I'm saddled with debt and a boy who potentially can't continue something that is incredibly therapeutic. It's equine physiotherapy, and it's incredible for him. It's amazing for him, and he's already had to stop so many other things.
So Katy, because I'm a bit slow, and there'll be other slow people out there as well who will need us to count this. I really want to nail this down. You're saying that you do the activity, equine, did you say physiotherapy?
Yeah.
So he does that. Mm-hmm. You then get the invoice at the end of it, end of 10 sessions, 2 sessions, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. You then take the invoice to the correct department within the government to get reimbursed like you would have done under Labour, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
And they say what?
They said, no, the dates are out and it's not fitting the exclusion criteria. It's like some recency. I haven't got it in on time. And I'm like, but this is new. And he's already done the lessons. Yeah. And it's something that's been pre-approved.
So what happens to that invoice of $600 or whatever it is?
It's mine, and it's way more than $600. Yeah. it's way more than $600. So it's now my responsibility. I have to magic this money out of thin air after, the most expensive calendar month for me, because my power's through the roof and water's through the roof. I've had to buy extra medicines because he's been extra sick. And on top of that, I don't have, when I've got a sick child at home, like Edward's currently awaiting emergency surgery. So he's on the wait list. He's a high priority patient, but I've been told that for his type of oral surgery, the wait list is anywhere between, and I quote, 2 weeks and 2 years.
Wow.
I've never had Edward's, kind of always coming in for like acute surgery or emergency surgery. It's never like, oh, this is an option. It's a nice to have. It's like no, we need it now. When we went in for one tooth last year that had a cyst, the Max Fax surgeon was like, okay, I'll see you, if not next week, the week after. That was really easy to kind of apportion time to. And ordinarily, with his current situation, which is 12 adult teeth requiring surgery, he's in a world of pain. I would never send him to school, but I also can't feasibly keep him home from school for 2 years, plus the school will be probably kicking us out because we're ruining their averages, by having him away. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, I gotcha.
The ableist rhetoric runs further than the disability cuts, but the impacts are really widespread.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly hard to pin it down. Like, yes, there was this quote unquote pause, which is obviously a hard stop, but there have been further changes to different funding streams all the time. And it's so destabilizing for me as a carer, but also for Edward. Like the worst, I think, was we just had his autism drama class just cancelled. Like, we can't continue. There is no funding. There's nothing left in the kitty. Next Friday will be the last lesson.
So that was a course that was paid for with government money. So rather than you getting invoiced, it just had to stop. Is that what you're saying?
No. So we paid a fee, but we didn't appreciate, the parents did not realise that there was a co-payment from government.
Okay.
And
the co-payment stopped. So that stopped the course.
Well, it was that, but it was also the timing, because carers who had previously been able to use their respite or carer support to pay for their portion of the fees could suddenly no longer use it. And so parents weren't able to meet their contribution fees as well, because without that additional money from their kitty. So it was kind of like, it was from both sides.
Yeah, double whammy.
It was a double whammy. They were like,
Yeah.
well, fees are not coming in on time or with, at the rate that they were previous. And I'm like, but you know why? And they're like, no. And so I kind of explained to them on their side, and they're like, well, also, we just do not have enough from our side. So even if everybody was paying their fees on time, and even if everybody paid the full amount, it still wouldn't cover the 100,000 gap that we have to fill. And I was like, yeah, we can't give
Katy,
you that.
and I apologise to you for asking all the questions. You should jump in next, Cherry. But the one thing I wanted to know is, you're obviously within that community, yeah? And I'm not trying to sound patronising with this question. It's a genuine question, because I also think about what people are wondering out there watching. Are you the exception? Is your story the exception? Or is your story your story the norm? Like, is this the norm that's happening to everybody?
I don't even think, I genuinely don't even think mine is the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
That's
just terrifying.
I was just talking to a mum today, whose son has been stood down from school for, meltdowns that turned violent, because he had no support in school, because he had been denied ORS, because that criteria also needs to be brought in. So without learning support,
that means like no teacher aid assigned.
No TA, not even an LA, not even like, not even some type of RTLB or IWS, which is like, these are transitionary supports, so they can kind of come in for like 6 to 8 weeks. Absolutely nothing. This kid had zero supports. And so instead of having somebody there who knew him, who could de-escalate the situation, it escalated. And so now he's at home, and mum's had to stop working out of home. She works from home, but she's working full time.
Yeah.
And she has a high needs son at home who she's also somehow supposed to provide care for, who is twice her size and melting down. And she's had some of her funds. Yeah. I actually consider myself one of the lucky ones when I compare my actual lived situation with other carers, especially because the suicidality that I'm in contact with, I've never seen anything like it in my life, and I've been in this space for nearly a decade, and we all did lockdown together. And if your felt experience of that was perpetual fear and trepidation, you can kind of imagine that ours might be kind of like a level 10 up from that, knowing how vulnerable our kids were and watching the world feed the elderly and disabled to COVID-19 first, I still did not see caregivers and children fronting up and saying, I'm thinking about attempting. I just can't see any way out. I'm so beyond burnt out. My child is so beyond burnt out. We're being turned away from school. We've got no family. No one will help us. And I think I've only ever had a bout of suicidality once. And it wasn't the caregiving, although the caregiving was peak. What it was for me was that when I asked for help and when I told people I'm drowning, I really need help, it wasn't given when it would have been so easy for them to help. And that's the message from government, is people are putting up their hands and saying, I'm already in crisis. I need that thing. Whatever it was that was holding me together or holding my child together, you've stripped it away, and we're already on our knees. And it's that feeling invisible and worthless because somebody's assigned like a dollar value to you or to your child. And I'm desperate for people outside our community to see us and to reach in and reach out, because when we're not coping, we're not asking for anyone to fix us, but we just want people to know that things have never been worse. I'm comparing this to COVID. This is awful.
Chewy, do you want to offer anything? You're just sitting there listening. I know there's nothing we can actually say, Chewy, in this setting right now. Katie, you saying it all, but is there anything you want to offer as a part of this chat?
Katie, I've got a lot for you. I'm an ADD kid. I was a difficult kid growing up. Both my siblings have it as well, and I just remember how hard my mum had to fight. And she hasn't had to carry as much as you're carrying. But there's just a very familiar thread there. I know how important respite care was. I remember there's quite a big age gap between me and my brother. But he would often come down to me at my student flat and stay with us for school holidays as respite care. And it was always something that he looked forward to. He got to hang out with his big brother. But behind the scenes, I knew how important it was for my mum and my dad just to get a little bit of pressure release. And I remember this, exactly what you're describing, and this is 20 years ago, 25 years ago, of trying to do your best to fit into the requirements that the government departments are giving you, to get your invoices in on time, to meet the criteria for this funding that they make you really, really work for. And then you do something wrong, as you said, it's out of date. The wrong person signed it. That activity isn't approved. All of this sort of thing. It's this obstacle course of bureaucracy that's meant to make you give up. Because if they don't have to pay it, they don't have to pay it, right? That's a win. And I see a lot of people in the chat. We want to help. We want to. I mean, I'm just pulling it out of chat. There's a lot of people that are saying, what can we do to help you? What can we do? So we will sort something out. We'll talk about it offline, whatever. But I think I want to contribute. Chat wants to help. I'm sure Pat would agree with this. Yeah. It might be something, whatever we can do.
I think it's just that feeling is kind of what we need. It's not so much the what or the how or the who. It's the intent and I don't know. It doesn't really matter what it is, because at the moment it feels like nobody cares if we go. You know, it really feels like and it's not just us. I think it's our kids. We feel like it's worse than feeling unimportant, to be honest.
Well, you're never on the front page, are you? It's landlords, or it's ferries, or it's roads, or tunnels, or whatever.
Or the All Blacks.
And I think when people talk about the difference between left and right, this is it. You know, do we look after people that need looking after, or do we go, they're not visible enough? You know, we can get away with cutting these people off from help and funding, and it feels cold and mechanical.
But it's easy because they know we're so exhausted. We can't fight. That's the thing. We cannot fight back on our own. It never stops. There's no time, and that's why, you know, that they're trying to really instill that hard no, so that we just stop trying and we just give up. I really think that is the plan, if there is a plan around inventing all of these barriers that didn't exist and fly in the face of all the enabling good lives principles and approach, and it's winding things back to quite a dark place.
Can I just ask this sounds a bit strange, but can I ask a logistical question? This government comes across to us as mean and vindictive and petty, like in general what they're doing. That's how we see them for a lot of things. How have you found the staff at, I'm not sure, there's the Ministry of Disability. Who do you speak to when you're looking for your invoices?
Right, so the way it works is the ministry doesn't.
Sorry, I was going to say, what I wanted to know was is that mean vindictiveness going down and into the people you're talking to, or are they still as sort of the same as they were under Labor? Is there any vibe with your face-to-face contact with people?
It really depends. So face-to-face with Whaikaha before Whaikaha was being disbanded, I was in part of the consultation that they had just straight after the announcement, actually, and it was around a different fund, and it was a different level of public consultation, and they apologized before the minister had, and they were very gracious and they were wonderful. However, from that time until this, it's not so much the interactions with ministry, although I personally do feel not only has that deteriorated a little bit, but I guess as their power's been diluted, so has their agency and advocacy on our behalf. But in the funding holders, so we don't deal directly to ministry, I might be a little bit of an exception. There'll be a handful of other advocates and carers who, you know, make a point of going to all the things and as much as they can. I thought the turnout for that particular consultation was appalling. There was like half a dozen. The room was completely empty, except for like 5 seats. But in the funding hole providers, there's these they don't talk about our kids by their names. They've replaced client with PWS, and I think any time you're using an acronym in place of an actual human's name, and we chose client because we wanted to step away from pathology and let go of patient. The use of an acronym is really designed to rob someone of their personhood. There's no other reason why you would do it when you have a perfectly good shorter syllable name that you could use instead.
Yeah.
And we've heard some false claims being made by either, it's only a handful, and I don't want to blanket this because as a general rule of thumb, I actually think like NASCs are good people. They're great professionals and they're wonderful at what they do. But I have heard of a couple saying, oh, we don't recognise neurodiversity as a disability anymore. Who is this we? And what's their medical qualification? Because the specialist that my son is under didn't study for more than 10 years just to have some woefully underqualified person say, it's not a disability. It's not disabled enough.
This is my pledge to you, Katy. I will fight that person. You find out who it is, and I will fight them in the street.
Hey, Katy, this is a kind of a unique moment. I mean, you've been a broadcaster and a TV presenter. You kind of know how this goes, but I have no idea how to wrap up this conversation. Like, I have no idea how to, why to, what to do next, if anything. Maybe we can just throw it to you and just say, tell us something we can do. And I don't actually necessarily mean, flick a buck here or there. Like, what do we need to do that are the like, we talk about being buffers. Like, we had this conversation with Professor Margaret Mutu, and Chewy asked this fantastic question: what can we do as non-Māori, meaning literally us? And she said, be a buffer, stand in the gap. You know, if they won't listen to us, maybe they'll listen to you. You know, is this needed in the disability sector? Are there buffers needed in there?
We need more than buffers. We need allies.
Yeah.
And even if, when I say reach in and reach out, I'm not actually asking you to come to my house and care for my kid. I don't want you to fix me. I'm not asking you to do my life for me. What I mean is, you know, not expecting you to understand the raft of things that are going on for me, but you could just be as simple as saying, I saw something in the news. Sounds like things are really hard for you at the moment. Are they? Because what turned things around for me when I was suicidal was somebody just being brave enough to say, are you thinking about attempting? And it was like, oh my God, somebody's giving me a hand in when I'm going under. I think it's really just that thing of being a good neighbor in the way that we were during lockdown, popping your head over the fence, or, you know, just being like, it can just be the most basic thing, a regular text, or even, you know, just popping into someone's DMs, just be like, it's been a while. Things are pretty sucky for everyone right now. Do you want to talk about it? And even if it's not, just knowing that somebody's noticing that you've gone absent can mean the world. Really does. When you're doing everything behind closed doors and behind curtains and nobody can really see into your real life.
And I guess the people watching now or listening in the, you know, when it's an uploadable podcast, even though you're here speaking to us, you can be our representative of the neighbour or the person across the road or the person at the supermarket that we may know is in a, you know, some kind of similar position to you, and to think about that for them as well. So rather than thinking about just Katy, thinking about these people in our lives that we connect to, that we can do that kind of thing with.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be big, but it can be if you want to. I know that Labour have just started up a petition to save Whaikaha. We would really love to save our ministry. It took so long to get one, and they have barely just gotten off the starting blocks. Every signature counts. Yeah. And, you know, if you're feeling bold and brave, don't be shy about calling up your local MP and saying, this is absolutely not what I signed up for. I did not vote for this. May have voted for you, but this is a step too far.
Katy, I want to stay in touch. I like, what we want to do here is make sure our audience is informed as to what's going on. I'm sorry to talk about it like it's a bit of a subject matter, but I'll stay in touch.
Well, it is.
Yeah, I want to talk to you some more when that petition becomes more obvious to us. We want to talk about that, and just thanks for saying yes. Thanks for being brave and jumping on tonight and having a chat with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
We'll talk super soon, eh?
All right.
Thanks, Katy.
Right, take care.
Bye.
You can talk now, Joey.
That's a lot, man. One of the things I was going to say. For someone in that position, when you're saying, you know, how to be visible and how to let people know what you need, it's real hard to wave a flag asking for help when you're putting all of your energy into keeping your head and the heads of your loved ones above water. And I think there are so many people that wouldn't come within 100 miles of knowing what that's like. And when we vote for people, and when they promise us things, it's really easy to make that about you or about the people that you know or the situations that you know. How many people are out there waving the flag for Katy, or people like her, or families like hers,
or for their Katy in their life or in their neighborhood? Yeah,
I think as much as so many of our shows are about lashing the government and just playing the political game, I think this really focuses, in my mind, what we're here to do when I think about changing the government and that sort of thing. Is it's more than my team versus their team. It is about people who don't have a voice, who don't have the visibility, don't have the spare time to do a podcast 4 nights a week. Is that we wave that flag.